this is a YouTube video, and it's a video blog. It's about the topic I'm fairly interested to know about in our future, the music industry and rock and roll in general, if grunge should make a comeback or not, basically. Well, grunge came out of Seattle, obviously, and it was marketed to the mainstream and mass consumption in the early 90s when Pearl Jam's 10 and Nirvana's Nevermind made it big in the music industry and made an impact in rock and roll at that time, basically. And yeah, the message was obviously clear and simple, basically. You know, if you're a grunge listener like I am, you will know that there's a feeling of apathy and disillusionment with the current state of society and the generation gap in between, basically, and real life seriousness and issues and stuff like that. And alienation is one thing, you know, because I've been through that, obviously. I've been through a lot of alienation and times of troubles in my personal life, basically. And we're not going to go too much into the details of the grunge history and music, but we're just going to give it short and clear that people say grunge died because the musicians couldn't handle didn't think it was supposed to be a mainstream thing in general. It was marketed in the underground, and there was other stuff that was going on that was happening in Seattle at the time, or whatever, wherever, I don't know, but, how should I say this, because I'm really tired right now, and everyone's asleep, so, grunge music, well, some said it died out when Kurt Cobain, or was starting to die out when Kurt Cobain committed suicide back in 1994, and others would say it just got really watered down with this post-grunge derivative form of style of music, with bands to replace the void that Nirvana and Pearl Jam left behind when all these grunge bands in the mid-90s started to fade from the spotlight. Well, grunge basically was a genre which didn't feel comfortable with mainstream commercial success based on the musicians and the scene's upbringing and stuff like that or whatever. I'm not sure. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. Don't criticize me because I'm just trying to give a point out here, basically. So, hold on. Well, the topic I was searching on Google about some articles I'm interested in knowing about certain styles of music. Like, one thing in particular that caught my mind was the music that influenced me as a musician and songwriter, and others possibly too in this generation, basically, or people in general, even from then and now, called if grunge should come back or not, basically, grunge music. There's a lot of counterexamples and different opinions from others saying why it should come back and why it shouldn't come back. Number one, people should think it should come back because the music industry we're in right now is very, very stale and bland and watered down and sugar-coated and boring. People would complain about the music they listen to now. Some people would actually think that the music nowadays that's playing on the radio really does suck. And when I was growing up, basically, I think the early and mid-90s was the most fertile music scene out there. It was like the most diverse of all genres, basically. Not just grunge, but Britpop and other stuff, too. And look at our economic situation, our political situation right now in our country is like, we really need a rebellion against this kind of nature of this situation we're in America right now. Like, the music in general should be a comfort for us to rebel to our current economic and despair, like the war on terrorism and all this other crap that's going on in our society. Not sure if that would help, but another example that someone gave why grunge should come back is because there hasn't been a rock band that made a significant impact in the music industry in a decade. We could blame music industry and the marketing of it and the music downloading and the rise of the underground music scene where people promoting the music on internet, on websites that basically that's not helping market out new names in the music industry or shake things up a little, you know, like promote them as the next big thing like they did in earlier years, because I honestly have not heard a band that made a significant impact in the music scene since a decade or so. I'm not quite sure when, I don't remember, but it was a decade since I heard a notable scene that made a slight dent on the music industry, which was the garage rock revival that happened in the early 2000s with the Vines, the Strokes, and the Hives. That was a brief kind of thing, basically. It didn't really make a big impact. We don't know why this was the case, but we might have to blame the music industry, the music downloading, and all this other crap, like, you know, stuff like people actually playing music in their own, or in bands, or themselves playing in their own bedrooms and putting their music up on the internet, basically, and stuff like that. I've heard comments that people said why it should not come back from what I read, basically why grunge music should not come back, and I'm kind of like trying to think of a conclusion to give out afterwards. Some say it won't come back because it was from that certain time period that cannot be duplicated again afterwards, because just let it be, basically. Pearl Jam's and Nirvana's success and their music would not be duplicated by an imitator or some, I don't know, like, you know, the impact of it was tied to a certain time frame in history in America, basically, and the music industry in general, and it cannot be repeated once again because the message and original intent of grunge was of itself. I'm not sure. Sorry if I'm being really dozed out. I really had a bad hangover, or I just had a lot of homework to do, so bear with me on this one. So another reason why they said grunge should not come back is because this music has an evolution to it, basically. It's like there's a very rare occasion that lightning can strike twice in a band and music style to regain that revival of some sort, basically. And because of that, well, psychedelic rock in the 60s, for example, that was really big in the late 60s, during the time of the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, and all that kind of stuff, the Doors, Jimi Hendrix, but that had a revival, but it was more of an underground kind of thing. It didn't really have the lightning strike twice in the mainstream like some bands like Aerosmith did, for example, in the 80s when they came back, or I'm not sure if there's any other genres that got really revived to a certain extent, but thrash metal had a revival of some sorts to a certain degree, but not like a big impact, like, you know, like some gigantic big new thing in the music industry or whatever. And ran out of cigarettes. But I think, should grunge really come back? It's a matter of your own opinion, but honestly, I think that considering the situation we're in right now, the music industry is really bland in creativity and new talent, and there's not really much to offer in the mainstream currently, and as far as bands is concerned, and marketing next big things and shaking things up a little. So we need something that will make an impact. It might not be grunge, but it could be something different, basically. So I think because music has an evolution phase. I mean, like, people, I know some old timers are already getting sick of the new hip hop that's being played on the radio, basically, because it just sounds really bland. I mean, not to say all hip hop is bad, like my other video is. There's some hip hop that's actually pretty good, actually, in the underground, whatever. But people say rap died with Tupac and Biggie or something. But some say grunge and the music industry, when grunge died, the music industry kind of went down as a whole, or something like that. Like there's not been a big band since then. Like Oasis might have had a big chance in that time frame, but not a big impact like the grunge did in that certain time frame. But how should I say this? Should grunge really come back as a matter of your opinion? I would respect what you have to say because this is music I grew up liking. I'm a songwriter and musician too, and guitar player, so I write my own songs. Hard to label though, but you can listen to my songs if you want on my page. So I think if grunge should make a comeback, it would not really be the exact same grunge we grew up liking or were exposed to from the early 90s and got into and was aware about. Because it might be like a derivative form of grunge, basically, but it'll be called a certainly different style of music once it becomes noticeable. Because I think there are some grunge bands out there, basically, but they're not really considered grunge by some people's opinions, but there's probably a band in the basement playing this kind of music they were influenced by, basically, you know what I mean? So I think the music industry is a really shallow one right now. It's not really marketing new talent and pushing the envelope with new ideas, sort of, these artists. I don't know why it's like that, so just give me a reason why. Just leave a comment or whatever. But I think if grunge did make a comeback, it would not be like the grunge from the early 90s. It could be, because considering the economy we're in, but it wouldn't be really called grunge. It'd probably be like grunge mixed with some other genre of music or another fusion of styles, because like I said, all music styles progress and evolve over time, like a Darwinism evolution theory in the styles of music, basically. So rock wise, I'm not talking about hip hop, but I could see